And then so and then car goes over it.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome aboard. As many of you are still settling into your seats as we make our departure, let's do a quick microphone check. If you are able to hear my voice at all, go ahead and raise your hands up. Yeah, excellent. Volume-wise, let's see. If this volume is too loud for your ears, hands up if it is too loud or too soft. Excellent. Looks like it'll work out just right. Welcome aboard the Africa Tram. I'm Candy. I'll be your driver and guide for the next 25 minutes. And I do have some safety information. It's, everyone's favorite. First things first. If you take a look above your heads, most of you should be able to find a solid yellow strip on the ceiling. It says push for emergency help underneath it somewhere if you see that. And if you or someone around you should experience a medical emergency, that is your way to get my attention. You're going to press and hold that yellow strip down. If you see nothing overhead, well, that just means you're right behind me. The driver, I do have a window. You can knock on the glass or have somebody do that for you if you need, so I know to stop the tram. I will come back. I will see what I can do to help you out, or if we need to call for further assistance. Now, because those are for medical emergencies only, I am not able to stop for any personal items that fall overboard. If you lose something, let us know at the end of the tour. We will do our best to get it back for you if we can. Anytime we are moving, please remain seated. I may be able to make a few stops along the way, and to get those better views, if you would like to stand up when we are fully stopped, feel free. Simply have a seat as we start to move again. Now, it is worth noting that the doors on either side of the tram, they are latched. However, they are not meant to hold your full body weight, so do be careful about leaning on, sitting on, or pulling on those doors. And one last piece of a request, I suppose. We're going to see a lot of species native to the African landscape that have incredibly sensitive hearing. I'm sure we want to see their faces rather than their backsides. So we do ask you silence any electronic devices and keep conversations to a respectable volume. Now, some of those with the incredible sense of hearing are rhinos. So we put a truck inside the habitat for scale, so you can see how big they are. But if you notice the rhino's behavior, they're not reacting to that truck. That truck is a wildlife safari truck. This is something these rhinos, they have in their environment every single day, multiple times a day. They're used to those trucks. They know what those trucks are. They know those trucks are not going to pose a threat to their safety. So they just kind of ignore them. But it's a really cool experience to get the opportunity to have that up-close view. And you can see one of them, she's just meandering right in front of the truck. Sure, don't mind me. This is my home, after all. This is where I live. There she goes, on her way. Now, we will come back to all of this towards the end of our journey. We have 2.5 miles to explore, and we're going to be searching for about 50 different species of mammals and birds. Many of them might be recognizable, and some might be new faces. I will do my best to point them out as we see them and touch on various different adaptations for survival that we see, like behaviors, for example. Now, we've already seen one with rhinos and with a variety of other species around it. There is safety in numbers, even if you're a rhinoceros. Because really, it comes down to survival, and survival of the babies. Now, survival of the babies means survival of the species. And while the adult southern white rhinos may have very few, if any, natural predators, when there are babies, they're much smaller, and they're much more susceptible to predators such as lions, hyenas, wild dogs. So the females, like we saw there, tend to be more social with other females, more or less, for any babies that might be around. Now we will have an opportunity to look for more rhinos, don't you worry. We'll be looking for a lot of stuff. And as we head out into our version of the wilds of Africa, I want to thank you all for coming through one of the two front doors of San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. The other one, of course, being the San Diego Zoo downtown. Now, together being a worldwide conservation organization dedicated to creating a world where all life thrives, concentrating those conservation efforts in the wild in 8 main hubs around the world. A couple of those hubs are represented here on this tour, the first one being the Savannah Hub. So our version of the savannas of South Africa, stretching out before you on the left-hand side. This large body of water marks the beginning of about 30 to 40 acres for just one field habitat. There's a lot of space out there, a lot of open space, a lot of different species living together. and ignoring each other. And that's the beauty of it. That is their choice. They have the opportunity to interact or not as they choose. Now this design that you see, this whole idea of an open concept for a zoo setting was pretty revolutionary, and at the time in the late 1960s, nothing like this had really ever been done before. But it is a very specific design, and it is meant to encourage the natural behavior of the wildlife here. And it does center around their natural breeding behaviors, as we are first and foremost a breeding facility working on adding to those world populations and bolstering populations. Because really, no matter how well adapted all wildlife is at surviving on their own in their natural environments, their natural habitats and predators as best they can, when they face their challenges outside of all of that, they don't have adaptations to. For example, the antelope, the big-tailed antelope that you see here at the water's edge, coming down for a drink in the morning. These are called common elands. Very normally a migratory species, traveling here and there and everywhere in search of what they might need, like food. Their food doesn't always grow in one spot. They may have to travel in order to find it with seasonal growth. So those movements are part of their survival, and when those movements get interrupted or stopped altogether because of things like habitat modifications, could be fence lines, roadways, human activity, human interactions, that does create a little bit of conflict in their world. So we partner with other organizations to find creative solutions to some of these, and I'm going to, if I can, and along the way, touch on some of those collaborations that we have going on with other organizations and partnerships. Now, migrations also happen in the air. Birds, for example, many bird species fly to different locations, completely different locations, in search of safe nesting grounds. And their wild counterparts certainly would do that for the great white pelicans as well as the Dalmatian pelicans represented on the right side of the tram. Now, as you're looking at these birds in these open habitats, you might be thinking, well, can't they just fly off? They do have wings. And it's true, they do, but no, they can't. Typically, there's been a one-time procedure done when they're really young called pinioning, which will prevent them from flying off and getting out and causing mischief in the native habitat surrounding us. But here's the thing. If you don't have to move around, if you don't have to travel that great distance and put yourself at risk, then don't. And that's pretty much the world they have here. They get free food, it's delivered to them. They don't even have to go work for it. It's nice. They get free housing, safe housing, free building material when they do build their nests. It's all provided for them. Beautiful thing, wonderful thing. Now, I will say, we do see some mini migrations throughout these large field habitats for the more nomadic antelope, like the little tiny springbuck antelope. They have little tiny bodies from a distance with a tan back, a white belly, and a black stripe on the side of their torso. So depending on the time of day, depending on where they want to be, they might be in a completely different location an hour from now. And as they travel, more often than not, they are grazing on the grasses. They're taking in fueling their bodies with a food source, the grass. But as they do that, they're also eating and consuming seeds. And as they move around, what goes in eventually must come out. So they're also helping by dispersing those seeds, pushing them into the ground, aerating the soil, which allows new growth to come up. So all of these beautifully manicured lawns that you see in this large field habitat, that's all done and taken care of by the wildlife. The only thing we have to do as far as human interaction is water the lawns. There is an irrigation system in place, a sprinkler system, but that's it. The rest of it, we have an entire horticulture team out there. And most of them are four-legged with hooves. And some of them have babies. Coming up ahead of us, one of the more formidable prey animals out here, and highly visible. Now, if you're a prey animal, most of the time you're trying to hide from predators with some sort of a camouflage. If you're trying to hide, a solid dark color stands out. And that's the easiest thing for any predator to see. But the Cape buffalo are not trying to hide. That's the thing. They want you to see them. Now we're going to pull up alongside some of these Maasai giraffes. We're going to talk a little bit about the Cape buffalo. We're going to talk about the giraffe. But yeah, there are 4 baby Cape buffalo in this herd. So you look at the solid dark outline of the Cape buffalo. There they are, highly visible. Bam! You see them. No hiding, none of that. Very much on purpose, grabbing your attention, advertising to predators, everything they have that they will use to protect themselves, to protect their babies, by working together their size, their strength, and their numbers. And then you look at the giraffe, they're covered in spots. Spots are really great for breaking up the solid outline, and it makes it much more difficult to see these animals clearly. Believe it or not, it's really hard to find a tracked giraffe in the wild because they're so good at blending into their environment. Now, especially babies. There's a baby giraffe too, he's about 6 months old. Now, as far as conservation works with giraffes, like I said, it can be quite difficult to find them, track them, study them. So there's not a lot that has been known about giraffes. We know of them. We know they live in Africa. We know that they're covered in spots. They're really tall. That's super cool. But what do we know of their social structure, their family structure, their herd dynamics, their movement patterns, their range? Where do they go? How do they get there? So in order to try and answer many of those questions, there's a team of field researchers doing their best to track different types of giraffe in different areas by using trail cameras, remote trail cameras. By taking just tons and tons of pictures, they're learning more about giraffes. But all of those pictures would take forever to go through on their own. So what they've done is opened up a community scientist website where you can help them if you choose. The website is called wildwatchkenya.org, O-R-G, and basically you help out by looking at pictures from Africa and the African plains. When and if you see animals, you would identify what you're looking at. If you're not sure, there are lists and descriptions help you make your best guess. Then you answer a few simple questions after that, and that's about it. But it's proven really helpful. They've been able to go through sometimes about 10 years worth of data in just a few years because so many people have been helping them out. Now, it doesn't just benefit giraffes, it benefits and helps other species like the black and white striped equids that we've got coming up, also on the left-hand side of the tram. Here you have a pair of grevies and zebra, or zebra, depending on where you live in the world. Getting a better understanding of their herd dynamics and their whereabouts allows scientists and conservationists to better understand what interactions are they having with humans and livestock. Believe it or not, that is another challenge for wildlife, especially animals like grevy's zebra that are quite water dependent, meaning they cannot go but for a few days without drinking water. A lot of the other animals we've seen, even giraffes, can survive for several days, even a couple of weeks even, without drinking water because of how they digest their food. But not the zebra. So when our water source is nearby, like say a pond that we're swimming upon, they're never too far from it. Or a watering hole. Now when those watering holes are being taken over by humans with domesticated livestock, because that is how they depend on, that is what they depend on for their livelihood, to take care of their domesticated livestock. It does also create conflict. So one of the organizations that we partner with and we support is called the Northern Rangelands Trust. And they work with communities first around herd management, land management, and resource management. Now, others that like to hang out on the pond, in the pond, are some of these roan antelope that you see on the left side. Just hanging out. Why not? This is a little bachelor herd of male antelope. All these roan antelope that are part of this herd, that are a couple of them in the water right now, they were born here at the safari park. But as they got older, they moved out of the house. That does happen eventually, I promise. Now normally in the wild, this moving out of the house would mean moving to a completely different area to find females of their own, maybe to start their own family. But maybe they're not quite ready for that yet, but they don't want to stay at home. There's still safety in numbers, so forming or joining a bachelor herd allows them to survive long enough to find those females to start families of their own. Now here at the safari park and in other zoos, those movements are kind of created for them through something called the Species Survival Plan. It is essentially like online dating for wildlife and zoos, but they get matched up based on their genetic availability and compatibility with others. how we're able to maintain genetic diversity for the overall health and well-being of wildlife in zoos. Now, as we are continuing our journey overlooking the African plains on the left-hand side of the tram, just know what we have driven around so far is merely a fraction of the safari park itself. There are 1,800 acres that make up this facility alone, and half of that is much of what you see on the right, undeveloped hillsides, untamed wilderness. This is another conservation hub right here in our own backyard of Southern California. Much of it is surrounding hillsides, and everything we have on the right is California coastal scrub brush and chaparral. Now I point this out because this is some of the most endangered habitat in North America currently. Only about 8% of it remains intact within protected areas, and as one of the world's biodiversity hotspots, it is home to hundreds of different species of plants and animals, many of which live nowhere else in the world. This is their home. This is it. That's all they got. So we wanted to make sure they had a home for as long as possible. So we have views of California off on the right, with our version of Africa on the left. Now, as we come around the upper portion of the savanna habitat, just a different perspective of what we've already driven around. We've touched on various different behavioral adaptations for wildlife, moving around, migrating, traveling distances, or maybe staying in one spot altogether. Maybe they don't move as much. Maybe they like where they're at, because where they're at has everything they need. And oftentimes that's the case with a stable antelope. Now there's a dirt road that goes down and away from us inside the habitat. Just to the left, halfway down that dirt road, is a herd of antelope all lying down. Not sleeping, just resting, but all lying down, facing out different directions. A wonderful way to keep track of what's going on in the world around you. Have a buddy to watch your back. Stable antelope tend to be a bit more territorial. And it is the females that you see here with their horns that will defend that territory from any rival, stable antelope usually, rivals that might try to move in and take over. So yes, females are equipped with horns because they may need to use those horns at some point. Now the males also have horns, so sometimes unless you look really closely, it's really difficult to tell which one is the male, which one is the female. Well, as we were heading up the hill, we saw a couple of grubby zebra, and we weren't able to stop because we had to continue on up to the top of the hill, but we could pause for a few moments to get a view of a cousin of theirs, the mountain zebra, off to the right-hand side of the tram. There are 3 total. These 2 here underneath some of the pepper trees with those leaves and sweepy-looking branches. Ooh, look at them working in unison, as if they're one, creating this illusion. That was kind of cool. Beautiful example of how those stripes can be used as camouflage with each other. Even just 2 of them standing side by side gives the appearance there's 1, and then all of a sudden there's 2. Magic. Now imagine if you're looking at a whole herd and they're moving around and all those stripes are just blending and merging and melting and fading into each other, and where does one end and the other one begin? And that can be so confusing for predators. They just give up. They go home. Too difficult, too hard, too confusing, too chaotic. And from here, we will be circling back around to explore everything we just kind of skipped over in the beginning of the tour. We'll have an opportunity, a chance to maybe look for some more of those southern white rhinos and spend perhaps a bit more time with them if they're still in that area. They do tend to move around because they can. Now we've touched on some of the ways these animals have adapted for survival in their environment, their habitat, finding food, moving places to find safe areas to raise their families. As far as avoiding predators, a lot of that is similar. Moving around, running away, right? When they feel it's necessary. Working together to protect one another, such as the Cape buffalo. Living in herds, so you have more eyes, ears, noses looking out for you. Then your chance of survival goes up, then you'd be able to pass on your survivor traits to the next generation, to the baby. Now there are predators that live here on ground. No, we do not allow the predator and prey to interact with each other, but they are definitely aware of one another. The predators, like lions, are situated in a place where the wind will carry their scent out this direction. So all of the prey animals can smell the predators. They also are able to hear them when they roar, usually early morning, late evening, typically. So they're very much aware that there are predators nearby. But unless those predators are physically chasing after you, they're really not a problem. They're not a problem until they're a problem, but you don't know they're a problem until they're a problem. That's why you gotta have a friend looking out for you so you know what's going on. And if that friend happens to be the height of a 2-story tall building, that's even better for you. Because then you have your own personal watchtower. With their incredible height, with their beautiful brown eyes, they can see things from about a mile away. Giraffes are, quite honestly, the watchtowers of the savannah. And there are numerous different species that rely on having giraffes in their neighborhood for that.
Now, giraffes are a keystone species. That means if they were to disappear, that would have a big impact on the ecosystem in which they live. Any organism can...
And you can see these spots look a little bit different than the previous spots of the other kind of giraffe. This is a completely different subspecies of giraffe. These are common giraffes. And these are the giraffes that are directly part of wildwatchkenya.org, that website I talked about. They are one of the more endangered subspecies. They've had to worry about things like fragmentation. Notice how she's over here? Everybody else is ahead of us? Now, if there was something in between them, some kind of a structure or a road or anything of that nature that would prevent her from getting back to the herd, that creates a bit of distress, I would imagine. Yeah? They've also had to worry about poaching, illegal hunting for various different reasons. So Wildwatch Kenya not only gets a better understanding of where these animals are, but maybe what they're facing and how we can help. Now this one is facing the food. It's facing the food. Where is it? Yeah. I don't know. I can't be bothered. We got snacks. So close. Now, as you can imagine, taking care of wildlife in a zoo setting such as this, providing the food, right, that they get each and every day, throughout the day, supporting conservation organizations that help their wild counterparts, it's a pretty big endeavor. But you also get to see exactly what you are helping to support with your visit here today, and you hear about it when we're able to share some of the stories of our conservation work with you on our tours. We are a not-for-profit conservation organization, so yes, we absolutely rely on gate attendance, on donations, on memberships, and so much more just to make all of this possible. Now, as we are coming around full circle, we'll have an opportunity to maybe look for lions in lion camp. We'll be waiting our turn to go back into the tram station, and we'll pause, pun intended, at lion camp. The lion camp will be just past this row of trees on the right hand side. If we see the lion, or a lion. But if not, just know that you can visit lion camp on foot. There's a wooden bridge that goes directly in front of their habitat. I don't see a lion, you guys, but I do see another creature. A bipedal animal.
Oh.
2 legs, walking around. So that means the lions will not be on habitat yet, but eventually later this afternoon they will be, as the wildlife care specialists are kind of doing a little cleanup and yard inspection. So that brings us around full circle. And I want to thank you once again for your choice to spend your day here at the Safari Park. And as you gather up all of your personal belongings to take with you, once I have come to a full and complete stop along the dock,